welcome to another episode of Read It with Whiskey. My name is Laura Juntunen, and today we are going to talk with Todd Mike. So before I dive into who Todd is and give the full introduction, I want to tell you guys how we met. So I absolutely love going onto Instagram and going to Instagrammers, the Bookstagrammer world, if you will. Indie authors and self-published authors have huge Instagram channels where you can find out about all of the new books. You can share other people's work, and it is such a great tool for readers to find new authors, but also for authors to grow their audience, which is very in line with what I do on this podcast. So whenever I'm on Instagram, if I see a giveaway put up, I jump on it. I not only want to win giveaways, because who doesn't love winning stuff, but also I want to help that author. I want to help authors get their word out, get their books out to the world, find more readers, and I want to help readers find those books as well. So by me sharing giveaway posts and entering into giveaways and putting all this onto my stories, I can help advertise for these authors, and then I might win something occasionally. Well, you guys, I won Todd's book. So Todd Mike has a book called Tales of Grimmgard, an anthology of dark fantasy. I'm going to get into that in a second. But I not only won the book, I also won an etched glass with the word Grimmgard in the coolest font ever, and a candle that says "Step into Grimmgard." It's a Talc Designs candle, and it is flavored. It is scented sandalwood rose, and it just smells so good. And I also received a bookmark. So I won all of this stuff. Oh, there were candies in there too. So I won all of this stuff just by participating in a giveaway on Instagram. And you guys, if I had not just shared this graphic on my stories, just friended this person, followed this person on Instagram, if I had not taken just 2 seconds to do that for a fellow author, I would not have been able to read this book or win that giveaway. And Todd wouldn't have been able to be here with us today. So I challenge you guys, if you see a book giveaway out there on Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media you are on, if you are a reader or a writer, go ahead and share that information, because that is huge for indie authors. All right, I'm going to get off my pedestal. I just love sharing. I love telling people stories. So let me tell you Todd's story. And his bio gets me every single time. I get the giggles, so bear with me here, but it's just great. Todd Mike is a fantasy writer based out of the American Midwest. As a young boy, he was captivated by classic literature, Longfellow's Musings, Poe's Madness, Tolstoy's Lamentations, Dickens' Tales, Shakespeare's Sonnets, and Doyle's Mysteries. By middle school, he was penning heroic fantasy game ideas and Star Wars fan fiction, which evolved into tabletop role-playing games to play out his original stories with family and friends. In 2015, he self-published Grimmgard, an original role-playing game book. Between sleepless nights writing new fiction, he enjoys exploring new coffee houses and experimenting with a variety of dangerous hot sauce. I love it. I think Todd is my spirit animal. We had so much fun talking today. I can't wait for you guys to jump in. And here is a little blurb of the actual book, Tales from Grimmgard, an anthology of dark fantasy. Two mighty sorcerers flee a scorched battlefield. A princess escapes into an enchanted wood. A mythical beast stalks the unwary in the dead of night. Warriors of a golden kingdom and a dark empire meet in battle. No one knows how these stories may or may not intertwine, except for the Prince of Angelics, whose mind is elsewhere. A storm is coming. These are the Tales from Grimmgard. Oh my gosh, I get chills. But no, really, guys, today you are in for a great episode. This interview with Todd was so much fun to record. And without further ado, let's just jump into it. Welcome to Read It with Whiskey, the interview podcast featuring science fiction and fantasy authors. My name is Laura Juntunen, your host and the author of the Shockwave series. I am also a book club moderator, speaker, and avid reader, truly invested in every author's story. Within this podcast, I bring to you, the reader, all the behind-the-scenes secrets to how these guest indie authors bring their books into the world. If you are a sci-fi fantasy reader, then you need to hear from these authors. Let's learn about the person behind the page. Sit back, sip some whiskey, and lean in to these self-published authors. It is time for a little Laura J. Live update. And you guys, So much has happened since the last episode went out with Nathaniel. So I went on vacation. I was gone for 2 weeks. There was no in-between episode between last episode and this. And that's just because I was living life and just really embracing it. I had such a good time. So this is more of a personal note rather than an author note, but I'm just super pumped. So I have to tell you guys, my boyfriend of 8.5 years finally proposed. Oh my goodness, it was a long time coming. I just thought we were going to be together forever and just not get married. That's fine, whatever. He totally took me off guard. I did not see it coming. We had talked about rings like 4 or 5 years ago. We went out to the ring store. I picked out what I wanted. And then we decided to buy a motorcycle because I work out a lot. And so I was like, I don't want to lose a ring. Plus, we can use a motorcycle every single weekend when we're together and enjoy the experience. We're definitely experience people over possession people. I am a total minimalist. Anyway, he proposed. I said yes. And it really just started the vacation on the right foot. It was day one. He was like, I couldn't wait. I was too stressed. I just had to do it already. So we got engaged last week and I'm just still on cloud nine. I'm so excited. But it's put so much more energy into me and I'm just so excited to start our new life and continue with our lives moving forward. So it was just such a great way to start vacation. And yeah, the rest of vacation was just as amazing. We had fun with family, with friends, and I got to see a lot of faces I hadn't seen for years. It was a family reunion up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Oh, and it was such a good time. But now we are back to reality and diving into this episode, getting back into podcasting stuff. So let's get onto the business side of the Laura J. Live update. So Read It With Whiskey, we are doing great. This is episode 3 of season 2. I have 3 or 4 episodes to record throughout the rest of this month into the beginning of September. And you guys, some of these books are incredible. I'm so excited to bring these authors to you guys. So definitely keep your ears and eyes out. This new way of having episodes go out every 2 weeks has really been helping with my planning of my schedule, all that type of thing, and giving me more time to work on Oscillation Rising, which is the other side of my update. Oscillation Rising, we are still in beta edits. I did not touch the book for the entire 10 days I was out for vacation. I was out of home, out of the office, and I am diving back into edits this week. So as this episode goes out, I should be well into the beta edits. So I'll give you guys an update in the next episode to let you know when exactly the book is coming out, because you guys, we are that close. So close to getting Oscillation Rising out. And if you haven't read Transient Pulse yet, definitely read it. On my website, I do have some signed paperbacks available. I only have a few, so if you're interested in a signed paperback, you can go straight to my website, www.laurajlive.com, or find me on Instagram and DM me to reserve your copy. So at Laura J. Live or at Read It With Whiskey on Instagram. You can reserve your paperback of Transient Pulse, and I can send it out within a day or two so you can get it before Oscillation Rising comes out, because it's coming up really quick, you guys, and I'm so excited. All right, so that is my update for the week. Short and sweet and to the point. So let's just get into this episode with Todd. Here we go. This episode of the Read It With Whiskey podcast is brought to you by Coffee Over Cardio. I've been using Coffee Over Cardio for a really long time, and I'm so excited to be an affiliate with them. So there is a link in the bio, but if you want to go there on your own, all you got to do is use my code 10LauraJLive. That's 10 LauraJaylive, and you will get 10% off your order. Todd Mike, and welcome to Read It With Whiskey. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm caffeinated and I'm ready to go.
Oh, I love it. I'm so excited to talk to you today. One, because I really like how we initially met. But not only that, I actually really loved your book once I got to read it. So just a little backstory for our listeners. I won a giveaway via Instagram and I won the book. So if you're watching the video version, I'm holding up the book here. I also won a candle, which smells like heaven. And I also got a little engraved cup that says Grimmgard, and I've got my tea in here. So I just want to say thank you for hosting the giveaway, because without that, without that, I don't know how we would have met. So let's dive straight in. First of all, tell us, why did you decide that you wanted to become a writer?
Oh gosh. So I've always loved literature since I was younger. In grade school, I read a lot of literature books, and I actually got inspired from them to write short stories and poetry that would emulate the famous writers that I was reading all about, people like Longfellow and like that. And so I just thought, oh, I could make something like that. I was always like that when I was younger. I'd see something drawn, I'd be like, I could do that, and I'd be drawing pictures of Spider-Man right out of the comic books or things like that. And so I just wanted to make something of my own that would be like that. Through high school and college, I would dabble in some short stories, some fan fiction writing, and things like that. But I never really thought I would get into a full length book, nothing that would become a full length published novel. I was no writing prodigy when I was younger or anything like that, but it was pretty good stuff. And then in August of 2012, I did a lot of tabletop role playing games with my friends because my brain was just bubbling over with stories I wanted to tell, and I wanted to get people involved in them. I loved that participation.
I was going to ask you about that. So, yeah, you can kind of elaborate on that and your whole game and everything, because I'm very intrigued. I mean, I watch The Big Bang Theory, and that's about my extent of knowledge when it comes to RPGs.
Pop culture has really kind of embraced Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I was never a big D&D, or like I played it once or twice, but there's a whole bunch of games like this.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Pop culture, like Big Bang Theory or Stranger Things, the kids in Stranger Things literally term the monsters and things that are happening supernaturally using terms from Dungeons and Dragons. So it's become a little more, people are a little more in the know about it. But I played a bunch of tabletop role-playing games at the time. I was always the storyteller. I'd be the one making up, you're here, you're standing in the middle of a dark forest, you hear a creaking noise in the background. What do you all do? And I just love that interaction with people. And after playing years of it, my friend one day challenged me and said, Todd, if you have so many complaints about this or that, what can you do better? Why don't you just write your own? I said, well, you know what? I think I will.
Yeah.
So 2.5 years later, I had a full-length hardcover 254-page core rule book that I published, and it did great. It did great. And I just, from there, the floodgates just kind of opened, and I wound up deciding I'd write fiction later, some full-length novels. But to whet everyone's appetites, I figured I'd release the anthology, just some short stories, let everybody know about this world that's been in my head for 6-8 years. And so I published Tales from Grimmgard, an anthology of dark fantasy, this past December.
So exciting. I'm so intrigued to what is going to be coming about from the Tales from Grimmgard, because there are 10 stories in here where I want a full-length book for each of these stories. I hope you know that. I expect a lot from you for the next 10 years.
There's a lot to come. Yeah.
So we will dive into the book in a second, but give a little background. Do you write full-time? Do you work full-time? What does your regular day-to-day look like?
Well, right now I'm working full time still. I work the stereotypical Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 office job. It's like it sounds. Real life just, it takes up a lot of time. For all the entire time I've been writing, whether it was my game book or the anthology, my happy time to be able to actually focus and write is generally from 8 or 9 o'clock at night until 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. Because I mean, let's face it, it's easier to focus when everyone else is unconscious, asleep. So no interruptions. It's distraction-free time. The later it gets. So
exactly.
they can't interrupt you then.
Exactly. I'm the opposite. Mine is early morning. So I get up anywhere from like 5:30, and then I write until 10, and then I go to a day job at 11. So I'm an early bird. So when I saw that you wrote that you write till 2 and 3 in the morning, I'm like, my creativity would be nope, out the window. So does that play a big part in your creativity? Do you find that you are able to be very creative at night, or have you tried writing in the morning to see your creativity at that time?
So I've read a lot, and a lot of what I've read is not just fantasy and fiction and sci-fi. I've actually read a lot of psychology books when I was younger. And when I was in college, I remember reading something very interesting as it mapped out psychologically what parts of the day are actually best for your brain for certain things. Like, did you know your short-term memory, for example, is the best between 10 and 11 a.m.?
Interesting.
It is. But so the creative part of our brain actually sparks up around 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You know, those nights where you're lying awake at night, replaying everything that I could have won that argument 3 weeks ago if I'd only said that. Like, you know,
Oh, I love it.
yeah.
So that's why my dreams are so creative, because I'm just like conked out sleeping at 10, 11 o'clock.
Exactly. Literally exactly why it is. So I figured if this is the only time when nobody's ever messaging me or texting me and no one's asking me to do something, or, hey, I got a question, or, hey, I have an issue I need your advice on, because I have a lot of people like that, then I figured I'd just tap into that. And I realized I am really creative around midnight, 1 a.m. And some of my best stuff is actually written then. So I just keep rolling with it. It's self-inflicted insomnia, but hey, it writes great books. So
exactly. And if it's working, then why change it, right?
I already published the anthology.
Right.
I have only vague outlines right now for the future coming books. I'm going to be starting more heavy lifting at 3 a.m, work on them closer to the start of fall. So I'll be penning the actual first draft starting probably in late September, early October.
Okay. But we know there's more to come. So that's the key there. You are doing self-publishing for all of these. What's the reason behind that? This podcast, obviously, I help indie authors, self-published authors get their books out to the world because it's hard to do marketing and stuff. So what was it that brought you to do self-publishing versus a traditional route?
A very common reason, which is that feeling that people want of maintaining control, creative control of their work. You know, I didn't want to risk that I would take something that I labored many, many late hours at night, many sleepless hours at night, and be totally satisfied with, and then hand it over to some publisher or some editor or some board that's going to look at it and say, no, this needs to change, or put that in your book, we're not going to publish it. Like, I didn't want it to be at the mercy of somebody else that way. Then the fact that, I mean, the publishing house at the end of the day is great, and no knock on you know, lots of small publishers, especially who are there getting their businesses started, who really want to give just volume to starting authors. But at the end, a business is a business, and there's money involved, and there's politics involved. And I really felt leery that, especially as a budding author, that I'd be preyed upon by the system, that my work would be turned into something that's used to push some sort of socio-political message, or push some sort of agenda that a board has put together, or that I would be marketed as well if I didn't obey their rules. I didn't want to subject my work to that. I want to keep it pure. And really, we live in a very, you know, business, political centered society, I think, that we're drowning in right now. And one of the great things about the escapism of fantasy and fiction is the escapism, the ability to get away from that. And I really wanted my work to be a literal escape, a return to that fairy tale, you know, feeling like you're reading old fables, nursery rhymes, and stories like that to just take you someplace else.
I love that. And I believe your stories definitely do that. I was reading The Hobble, and it's a poem, basically an epic poem. And I was surprised to find that. And I think that's like the third one in the book. And I hadn't really flipped through. I just started on page 1 and I just started reading. And so I came across the poem and I was like, oh, I'm so excited. It was so nice.
Hobble,
yeah.
Lots of people really enjoy The Hobble. And one of my friends said, I play the ukulele. And I was playing the ukulele as I'm reading this, and I realized, oh my God, I can set this to music. And it makes this weird, haunting, like, bard's tale. As I'm like singing it, I can sing the tale of The Hobble. And I'm like, yeah, you can.
I think we might have to get you to bring out an album or something, pair up with that person and get the song out to the world. Because
it's from Grimmgard.
Yes, exactly. But like you were saying, it's that old fairy tale vibe where like all of the Grimm's fairy tales came from, like that type, that feel, which is just really, really exciting. Okay, so tell us, where did the inspiration for Grimmgard come from? Because this is an entire world that you created. So lay it on us.
So Grimmgard draws a lot of inspiration from I think where a lot of people would normally jump on a question like this and say, oh, it's inspired by, you know, The Witcher, or it's inspired by, you know, Tolkien, or things like that. I actually, ironic as it may sound, I don't read a ton of fantasy. I actually don't. I tend to be more of a generic fiction, or I'll be a sci-fi reader. And so I don't read an awful lot of fantasy. I'm really picky about it. A lot of the influences for Grimmgard actually come out of history or our culture. There's a lot of Eastern mythology, a lot of Nordic mythology, Eastern Europe, Euro-Asian mythology that influences a lot of Grimmgard as far as the world itself goes.
Tell our readers, what is the vibe of Grimmgard? If they're going to jump into the book, what does that world look like for them?
So the world of Grimmgard is intended to evoke this real, like, Bronze Age to Iron Age sort of dark fantasy. Somebody once read it and they said that it reminds me of a cross between Grimm's fairy tales and Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
They're like, there's an element of this brutal, savage, dark fantasy where things are very primal. And they noted that, like, a lot of these stories take place outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
Notice that? And I actually didn't notice it. I was like, oh, I didn't realize no one's really indoors in this. No, they're running through the woods. There's a very primal, very animalistic feel to it. But they're like, there's also this sense of weird, strange, surrealist wonder where you don't know what strange ability the person you encounter is going to have, or if they're going to shift forms into something unexpected, or if some moonlight-eyed creature is going to come crashing through the woods on you when you don't know it, or if you'll suddenly find yourself under a curse or a spell.
You just rounded it up perfectly. Everything you said, I'm like, okay, that story. And I love that it's essentially 10 short stories packed into an anthology. And you touch on some characters that I hope to see. Like I said, I'm expecting 10 books out of this. So if there were one story specifically that you found is your favorite out of all 10, would you be able to pick just one, and why?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my favorite, and I love them all, but my absolute favorite is actually The Spirit of the Wood. So The Spirit of the Wood is my favorite because it carries not only this girl into this, it carries her into a situation that she doesn't expect, where she is running from pain and from betrayal, from the lack of love from her family, and she finds herself in a place that offers her complete deliverance from all of it and sanctuary. And it takes such an unexpected turn than what we're originally walk in believing could happen. I think that the story not only evokes a sense of kind of wonder, but also kind of a ponderous thought. You know, if we were offered the opportunity to escape everything that we hate about our lives, would we take it?
I really liked that one. That's my first one on my list. I wrote down 3 that were like my favorite, or that I got the most out of. Well, I loved all of them. It was hard to narrow it down. Well, one of them was The Hobble, because I hadn't seen a story put into poetry like that in so long. And so that one was really good. And I like the whole premise behind it. But then The Spirit of the Wood. And I really, when I was reading that, it gave me the Alice in Wonderland vibes, but also the Snow White vibes when she's running through the forest before she finds the 7 dwarfs. Right. Yeah, I really liked that. And then the other story that I really liked was the Volgath Justice, because that one, it teaches what this world believes when it comes to thievery and lying. And I just really liked the whole outcome of that one. And then the last one, The Prisoner, that was my other one. I mean, I liked all of them. It was hard to narrow it down, but
what did you like about Volgoth Justice that it kind of topped your list there? I'm really curious.
I think it was just that I didn't anticipate what happened to happen. That concept, it is intriguing because it's kind of like back to the childhood fables. It's like, what is right and what is wrong? And this story kind of put a twist to it, because it's like, okay, what is worse, stealing or lying? Right. And I don't know. It just really stuck with me for whatever reason.
I'm glad it did too, because Volgoth as a culture is actually going to factor very strongly into future stories. I mean, as you know, the Volgoth character, Judge Losharan, the Zealot of Catarath, he appears in 3 separate stories, and his story is definitely going to continue. And one of the challenges of Volgoth writing them is that they are this absolutely brutal culture. They have this cold-blooded, it just runs through everyone in their culture, and yet they do it on the name of being just and being fair. And so is it right to be just and fair if you have no mercy for anyone? Whereas he says in a later story, to quote him, mercy is a currency that I do not deal in.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm glad to hear that he's going to have a bigger role in one of the future projects. That's exciting for me. But yeah, I really liked all of those ones I just said. The Prisoner, I feel like that one is leading straight into a book. Is that one going to be one of the big projects?
It is. It is. So I have two big projects currently planned for next year that I'll be embarking on, as I mentioned, this autumn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be starting work on two novels simultaneously, and they're both going to have 2022 releases. Immediately jumping off of The Prisoner is going to be, and I'll give you a preview of the book titles.
Okay.
The next one, continuing the story of Zealot Losharon off of The Prisoner, will be Grimmgard, Mercies of the Ever King. So that will be one. And the other one is actually going to go from the opposite end of the book at the very, very beginning, the story of the sorceress Kismira,
Mm-hmm.
and where she goes off of the end of destruction. And the working title for that novel is Grimmgard, Heirs of Destruction.
I like that you chose the bookends of the anthology, because those were the stories where I was like, these are leading somewhere. So I'm glad I could read into that. Oh, it's so exciting to know that this world is going to keep going for us.
The question that I get most from everybody else is just, where's more? Where can I get more? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're saying, you're like, I need more of this. And it's actually, I've been so flattered and I feel so blessed that lots of people who have picked up the book, because it's been being reviewed a lot in places like Amazon and Goodreads especially, which is great because I love the Goodreads community. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
active in there. Is where's more? Where is it? I need more of this story. I need more of this character. People are very, very excited. I already have a small, there's already a group of people who seem to have fallen entirely head over heels for some reason for the main character from The Witch Hunter. I don't know why it is. They find him in his just kind of klutzy, just swing first to ask questions later demeanor. They have fallen for him entirely. And I don't understand it, but hey, it happens. So they're like, but do we get more of him too? Where's more? And so I get that question a lot.
Well, good. And then was there anything that your readers don't know about you that you'd want to share?
I mean, I feel like I've established a pretty strong presence in my social media, my Instagram account, Bookstagram, author account that I started, which is at todd.micah.author on Instagram. I share a lot of things about myself on it. So people have gotten kind of acquainted with me, but if they don't know already, I grow a rather magnificent beard, and I always sport that in pictures. It is very, very, very photogenic. And so like, oh, you have pictures, you need to put this on the internet, you need to be like a beard model. And I'm like, okay, cool. Not everybody grows such a nice beard.
I
I
love it.
raise carnivorous plants. I love my little Venus flytraps. I have two real big ones, Seymour and Audrey. I'm sure anybody who has watched Little Shop of Horrors gets the references there. And I think one of the striking things that people always walk away from kind of surprised about me, though, is a lot of bookish people and writers and readers are sometimes very introverted and very antisocial people. And I am probably one of the most social people you'll ever run into in your life. I'm that person who starts conversations with people as they're in line at the grocery store. I'll be riding an elevator. I'll be like, nice day, isn't it? What are you up to today?
I'm the opposite. When people come up to talk to me, if they're like, hey, nice day. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't know what to say. I'm so introverted unless I'm like working or I know that I have to be communicative. Otherwise I'm just like, nope, I'm just going to sit here and not talk to anybody.
Well, what's that popular joke they make nowadays, that introverts make friends from extroverts coming and kidnapping them into being friends with them? Yeah,
the extroverts like, you are mine now. You are mine. Yeah, I am your friend.
Surprise adoption. Yeah, now we're friends.
It works out so great though, because then it brings us introverts out into the world. Even though the year of quarantine, I got to say, I wasn't upset. I enjoyed the time.
Yeah.
But speaking of like community and getting together with other people, there are actually some co-authors to this book. So there was Amy Franz
Amy
and
Franz,
then
yes.
Rebecca Tawney. I was curious because writing a short story is difficult in itself, but writing it with another person, I couldn't imagine, because it's such a small piece of work, but it takes so much work to get into it. But then you have another person involved. So how did that look? How did you guys compromise on that?
Amazingly, actually, it was a very, very easy process. So there are two very interesting stories to tell about how each of the stories came around. So for Amy, I mentioned earlier how the first book regarding Grimgard was a tabletop role-playing game that I released in 2015. From that game, there's actually a Discord server, a dedicated Grimgard Discord server, where not only is the book and all things the book discussed, but more prominently, games of the Grimgard role-playing game are played. Amy joined the server last year, and she and I actually played through a role-playing game session of the Huntress Luella on this hunt. And so the story was told live in time with the two of us going and verbally playing it out, and we wound up writing it all down. And so we came back to it, talking about it, going, is there a story though that you want to tell? And she's like, well, I really enjoyed that story that we wound up telling in the game. And I said, okay, well, great, we can transcribe that. And she and I both sat and edited it and decided what things that we wanted to change or expand on, and the story just took shape really naturally from that. But we had already played it out real time as if we'd actually experienced it. So it's more like talking about something that had happened and not a story that we cooked up. You know what I mean?
That's so cool. I had no idea. And that's inspiring, because then other people who are playing these types of games, like, you can do it too. You can write a book about how you're playing. Yeah.
There's a lot of collaborative storytelling in that, and a lot of the stories in there, while tabletop role-playing games are often played out just orally, verbally, of people talking around a table or on a Zoom call or whatever, we transcribe a lot of it. There's a lot of people who love writing who play in the game, and eventually they're like, can we just write all of this stuff so that we can look at it forever? There's probably a couple of books worth of stuff just on that server.
Wow, that's so cool to know, because I have no idea. I don't play with that kind of stuff, so that's inspiring.
Now Rebecca on the other hand, and Becca's a great friend of mine. She is just an amazing, incredible writer, and that she also, being part of that Discord server and having played those games, she got inspired though to write stories of her own. And so she came to me one day and said, "Hey Todd, I wrote this story. Like I hope you like it." And I'm like, what is it? And it turned out it's a Grimgard story. And I was like, wow, I just felt like honored, because she is a fantastic writer. I really hope that she will write more in the future. I hope to include her in more of my own writing. And she has fallen in love with the Grimgard world. I fully expect that someday in the future, there will be Grimgard novels on a shelf somewhere with her name on them, because she's just an amazing writer.
That's so exciting. And it's so cool to be able to collaborate with people. I feel like the creativity and this type of community, self-publishing world, indie world, role-playing world, everybody is so supportive of other people's ventures, and they want to help each other. And that's one of the reasons why I knew that I had to create this podcast, is to help other people get out into the world and sell their books and build their following. And so it's just really cool that you're doing this in your work as well. So
it's authors uplifting other authors. One of the best things I've discovered when I got into the writing and author community, I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't sure if I'd be competing with other authors for attention on a book within a genre, if it worked like that, like in a corporate business setting, or, you know what I mean? And there's all that jealousy on social media, like, oh, that person got 65,000 likes and mine only has 15,000 likes, and they got more comments than I did. Or what it was going to be. And I was so pleased and humbled and happy to see how people just love. I mean, when you love books, you love all kinds of authors. You don't set authors against each other, that this person's better than that person. This isn't DC versus Marvel or Star Wars versus Star Trek. You know what I mean? And it's great to see people coming together. And authors have been, I want to say fellow authors have been some of the most supportive people, using their platforms to give each other volume. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. Totally not what I expected. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of it.
Yes, pleasantly surprised. Aren't we all? I love it. All right. So, I mean, I feel like we could go on talking, but I don't want to spoil the book for anybody else. They got to go buy it. They got to go get it and read the stories and then follow you. But it wouldn't be Read It with Whiskey without talking about whiskey. So, Todd, what is your favorite whiskey to drink?
Well, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a huge whiskey guy, but I have discriminating taste in all things. And I've got some big, high recommendations in my time. And I got to tell you, Knob Creek is probably supreme for me. It's really, really tasty.
All right, I like it. And tell our listeners, where can they find you? Where can they find Tales of Grimmgard and more about you?
So my listeners, your listeners, the readers you guys can follow me on my social media. There's a Grimmgard Facebook page, which gets updated with big news. There is also a website, which is grimmgard.com. Currently, it focuses a lot more on the role-playing game, but we'll have a lot more book news as novels are upcoming. You can follow me on my social media, which is 2 different Instagram pages. There's todd.micah.author, and then there's also Grimmgard Official, one whole word, which is the official Grimmgard account for all things gaming or fiction Grimmgard.
All right. And all of those will be linked in the podcast description for you guys to check out. And Todd, thank you so much for being on Read It with Whiskey. I had so much fun talking with you.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Talking with Todd today was so much fun, and we ended up talking for probably like 10 or 15 minutes after we were done recording, just getting to know each other a little bit better. And I've just got to say, this guy has so much coming. And obviously you heard he's got books in the works. I'm making sure that he's getting 10 books in the next 10 years. It's going to happen because I need them. But he is so inspirational, and he has such a big heart, and I love where he's going with all of his work. So I'm really excited to see what comes next. Also, we realized after we were done recording that he had not mentioned where you can actually find Tales from Grimmgard. So this anthology is available on Amazon, not only as an ebook, but also as a paperback. All of the links to where you can get his books, where you can find him, all of that information is in the podcast description. So go ahead, look in there, and all of the direct links will be at your fingertips. And of course, let me fill you in on what's coming up next. 2 weeks from today, we will have our interview with Max B. Sternberg. Max is the author of The Rise of Light. It is Christian fantasy. If you like fantasy stories with magic and big secrets and plots and family feuds, oh my goodness, you guys are going to have to listen in. We had so much fun talking, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Max. So I'll talk to you next time. You've been listening to an episode of Read It with Whiskey. I am your host, Laura Juntunen, and I just wanted to personally hop in and say thank you so much for listening. Your support of the podcast means so much to me, and I would really appreciate it if you could go onto your favorite podcast platform and rate and review the show. By rating the show, you're going to help more people find the podcast so then we can grow. Once you review the show, share it on your social media, share your favorite episode with your friends, and come back next time to hear more from self-published authors. I'll talk to you soon.